Welcome to another episode of LA Fish Guys. It's taken me about 25 years to kind of figure out that if you're not incorporating something into your saltwater system to remove nutrients, the things that food and waste in the tank ultimately become, you're headed for a problem. That problem most likely being an algae problem, especially if you're using a coral reef tank or setting up a coral reef tank. Because essentially that's just a big box of water that you've got an abundance of light coming through the top of. And again, if you're not doing something to remove that waste from the tank, you're just going to end up growing a whole bunch of algae. And it's ironic that the algae or other types of algae are one of the things you can use to solve that problem. Better yet, to remove the nutrients from the system so you don't have to deal with that problem. As you saw a while back, we set up a kind of a homemade algae filter on a reef tank, and we grew a bunch of algae inside of it with a separate light on top of it to try to compete for the same nutrients that the hair algae in the tank was feeding on. And we did eliminate the algae in the tank, but I'm not really sure if it was the result of that particular algae scrubber, but it was going in the right direction. If you're interested in looking into this a little bit further, look up information on Dr. Walter Adey, that's A-D-E-Y. He's the fellow who developed the original algal turf scrubber at the Smithsonian Institute. He was also involved in that biosphere project that took place over in Arizona. The algal turf scrubber essentially is a series of screens that the water washes over the top of, and you individually pull those screens out and you clean off the algae that's grown upon them. You would try to coordinate the growth of the algae on those screens so that you only removed one at a time. Well, as the aquarium hobby moves forward, certain individuals create things that are either more condensed or maybe more powerful. In this case, we've got a company that we came across called Santa Monica Algae Scrubber, and he's created a retrofit algal turf scrubber that you can put basically across the top of your wet dry trickle filter or sump below. It's about 25 inches long, about 7.5 inches tall, and about 7.5 inches wide, and it basically is a tall, skinny tank with two, I believe they're Power Compact or T8 fluorescent type light enclosures clamped to either side of this tall, skinny tank. And you essentially take and pump water in one end, and it runs through a rod that allows that water to run or rain down over a screen. The light on either side of the this little tank grows algae or encourages the growth of algae on that screen, and those algae on there, again, compete or consume the nutrients that are in the system. And then every couple weeks you might take that screen out and clean the algae off of it, thereby physically removing not only the algae you've just grown, but the nutrients that algae is absorbed inside of itself. You've taken that out of the system. I did speak with a fellow who owns this company. He's invited us down to for a little bit more in-depth introduction into his product, but we haven't been able to hook up yet. One of my customers, the fellow with the 180-gallon glass tank that you saw a few episodes back, has purchased one of those units in an attempt to eliminate the red slime that was growing in his tank that was borderline starting to turn into green algae. Well, he's ordered one of those and he's received it. We're going to go over today and we're going to install it in his system. So it'll be kind of a product review, but really I'm not trying to promote one product in particular. I'm trying to promote the concept of using algae to consume nutrients in the system. So come along with us and we'll try to teach you something more or learn something ourselves. And you can see the growth of algae that's occurred here over the course of the last 2 weeks. Today's Saturday, and I'm actually scheduled to be out this coming Tuesday to clean the inside of the tank. you can see that a lot of our red slime algae has decreased, but unfortunately it's been replaced by some type of bright green algae, which much longer I would expect to turn into possibly hair algae. And looking, if you can see in there, at the rock, there's an abundance of coralline algae, which is the pink stuff, and no real bad algae other than occasional spots of the red slime. So here's the challenge today, is to figure out where down inside the filter system to put the new algae scrubber. What we're going to try to do is straddle this end of the sump with he's got a board back there. We'll attach the back side of a shelf to, and then there'll be a leg here on the front side, and then that unit will sit on top of that shelf right at this end. My concern is this is where the water pump is, and is it going to get air bubbles from the algae scrubber as it deposits its water in there, and will that water pump pick up those air bubbles? But it occurred to me we've got the protein skimmer down here at this end as well, which is making a bit of an aeration situation, so I don't think we're going to add to it much or create much of an additional issue. So let's go ahead and figure out how we're going to get this shelf placed in here. And here's the Santa Monica algae scrubber. You can see, again, it's about 25 inches long, about 7-8 inches tall, and about 7 or 8 inches wide. Essentially, it's got two light fixtures clamped to either side of it, and it's a tall, narrow, skinny tank that you look down inside here, and you can see those are the lights shining horizontally into the unit. And then there is this, we'll call it a spray bar. This has the screen attached to it, and the water is introduced from a pump through this barbed end, which discharges through, I assume, a long slot that the screen itself is attached to, and that water rains down or runs down or flows through the screen, and as it does, it's illuminated by all the light inside this filter box here, and so you end up with algae growing on the screen. Now, every week or 2 weeks, you then take the screen out and clean or scrape the algae off of it. And as I said earlier, you then are physically not only removing the algae that's grown on there, but you're removing the algae that used or consumed nutrients in your aquarium. And so you're physically removing the nutrients out of your system. This little screen and pipe and screen sits down inside a little slot there, and again the water is discharged into here. There's no real water level inside this little filter box. There is a drain right at the bottom, and that drain would pop out there, so this unit really is designed to sit on top of your sump or your wet dry trickle filter, and deposits its water into that filter where you can use the rest of the system to recirculate that water.
Tropical Fish Hobbyist magazine has been the authoritative source for aquarium keepers since the first legendary issue rolled off the presses in 1952. With informative articles month after month about the fascinating world of freshwater aquariums, saltwater setups, paludariums, ponds, and more, illustrated in crisp detail by the world's top aquatic photographers. TFH covers it all. And now, with subscriptions starting at $13.95 and a mobile digital edition you can take with you wherever you go, TFH is your ultimate resource for all things aquatic. When in Los Angeles, make it a point to stop in Long Beach, California at Age of Aquariums, 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. At Age of Aquariums, their knowledgeable staff showcases designer aquariums featuring colorful corals and exotic fish, a spectacular 4-sided 500-gallon living coral reef, along with a wide selection of coral frags and a large selection of saltwater fish, the cute the graceful, and the not-so-cute. Age of Aquariums also carries a selection of popular freshwater fish for the beginning hobbyist. Along with a full line of aquarium supplies and supplements, Age of Aquariums quarantines and medicates all their new fish and proudly provides LA and Orange County's largest aquarium maintenance service. Age of Aquarium is located at 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. Open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. For more information, dial 562-438-6252 or visit ageofaquariums.biz.
So some of you have asked, what happened to the original 35 LA Fish Guys shows? Well, turns out there's a music rights issue, and I had to remove those videos because of those music rights. I can redo those videos, and I'll have to put new music in there, but doing that's a whole lot of work. Having said that, this coming September, the Marine Aquarium Conference of North America will occur in Des Moines, Iowa. They've asked me, Jim Stein, the LA Fish Guy, to come give a presentation, and that presentation will be the best of the original 35 shows. In other words, I am in the process of reconstructing those, and it'll be a while before those original full shows are available. But this coming September 9th, 10th, and 11th, Des Moines, Iowa, hosted by the Greater Iowa Reef Society, the best of the original 35 LA Fish Guy shows. See you then. And as I mentioned, these light enclosures are clamped or secure themselves onto the side of the algae filter box, so that once you end up taking them off, which they quite easily go into place, you end up with just the filter box.
And as you can see, it is simply just a tall, narrow tank designed to dangle a screen down the center of it and have two lighting enclosures clamped to either side of it. And even though these are aquarium enclosures, they just use low Kelvin, regular shop white, warm white, yellowy bulbs that you might be able to get at a hardware store to encourage algae.
All right, here's the shelf we've made. Again, it's supported at the back end on that board you saw attached to the wall back there. It's it's wide enough to accommodate the algae scrubber, and it elevates it up above the top of the sump there. So now all we need to do is position the scrubber, determine where the hole in this board needs to be drilled. That's the exit out of the scrubber. And we can cut that and then start assembling it and hooking up the water pump.
The hole that I'm referring to is to accommodate the drain bulkhead out of the bottom of the algae scrubber, as water will free flow through that 1-inch drain bulkhead. So we need to have a cutout in the top of our stand to accommodate that bulkhead. We also need to stop and consider where that water is going to end up going back inside the sump.
That's not going to work. Flip that way. This drain right now is right over the front.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't work out well. Okay, so
we'll
that moves the discharge back there near where the inlet of the water pump is.
Fortunately.
That's good we did the dry run first.
I mean, we can probably push it back another inch. It might clear it.
Okay, we've been discussing, since we've had this unit sitting here, how we're going to end up servicing it once we get it positioned in there. We'll start out by drilling just a hole to accommodate that drain out of there. But I think we're going to end up making that hole oblong so that we can lift the unit up, slide it back a little bit, set it back down, allowing us to only have to slide the housing or the tall skinny tank a little ways out of position, as opposed to taking the whole thing out. And the reason for that is one of these light hoods enclosures is going to have its catch or its power cord in the backside free or allow us the ability to get it out of there without having to disassemble the whole tank. Now, something we haven't really spoke much yet is what are we going to drive this algae scrubber with? Our original thought was we were going to tap off of the main water pump, which is what that valve spigot is there for, and that would send water into the algae scrubber. Well, as it turns out, it's my understanding that this unit requires 750 gallons an hour to fill up that long rod that has the screens hanging in front of it. Well, that's about what an Iwaki 40, which is the water pump on here, does. So if I end up sending 750 gallons an hour from the Iwaki pump through that valve into the scrubber, I have no water flow going into the tank. So alternative number 2 would be to take that 750 gallons an hour in that drain line exiting the tank and plumb it directly into the algae scrubber. Well, as we got to looking there, it turns out that algae scrubber, the rod in there that holds the screen, is 3/4 inch in diameter. So we'd be coming from an 1.5 inch drain line to a 3/4 inch barbed elbow or a barbed fitting, and I just think that's going to end up causing me problems with the internal overflow inside the tank. So what we've decided to do is set up a submersible water pump. In this case, we'll start off with a Rio 2500. It's a submersible water pump. But I guess my whole point of this long conversation was it's amazing how quickly the real estate in your open sump ends up disappearing. I mean, in the back corner there, we've got the Micron sock box from the drain line. There's all the return lines from all the various supplements we're putting into the tank. There's the water pump that drives the protein skimmer, and of course then there's the protein skimmer itself. And that shelf is going to sit right across here. So I'm thinking that Rio pump, that submersible pump, is going to go back over here near where that probe for the chiller is, or possibly right up in the front corner here. But I think I'd rather have it in that back corner. So I think what we'll do is we'll first get the shelf and the algae scrubber in position, and then we'll determine where to put the water pump.
So now you've got an idea of the basic operation. Let's work on the installation.
So make it a point to come on back for part 2 as we install the Santa Monica algae scrubber onto our 180-gallon coral reef tank.